smart man once told me that the payoff for hard work is not what you get, it's who you become.
Game night in the fall. Whether it's high school football, college, or pro, Michigan lives football. It's packed houses with colorful crowds, fired up coaches, monster hits, and amazing efforts. Big games and bigger causes. Communities come together. Teams bond. Dreams are realized. The dreams start now. This is the Football Frenzy Kickoff Special.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Football Frenzy Kickoff Special. I'm Jack Doles, joined by the Frenzy crew, Larry Figursky and Casey Jones.
And we'll spend the next hour getting you ready for the start of the high school, college, and professional football seasons.
You know, so often we're asked, why do we make such a big deal about high school football? And why don't you give the same type of attention to all those other sports?
It's a really good question. Here's your answer. Look at the crowds that flock to stadiums on Friday nights, and you'll see
Friday night football is a special thing, and it has been for a long time.
high school football extends beyond family and friends. It brings communities together and creates bonds with bands of brothers that carry on for life.
I think it sort of encapsulates everything you talk about in society, really. You know, hard work, sacrifice, trust. I think people are just drawn to it because they started playing it in this country at a young age, a lot of people. And everybody's an expert.
Marching bands, cheerleaders, color-clad student bodies. They're all part of the pageantry that is high school football. And the anticipation this time of year is always at a fever pitch.
Well, I think it's the fresh start of a new school year, and everything is new, and you know, every team that comes into practice has a chance to win a state championship. So, you know, I think that's what just makes Friday night so special. And you know, I love basketball and I love that, but it's that build-up of that whole week build-up to that Friday night game that's just makes it unbelievable.
That explain things a little bit for you?
Yeah, it certainly does.
All right.
3 West Michigan teams won state titles a year ago: Zeeland West, West Catholic, and Muskegon Catholic Central. Now at MCC, Steve Zerwan took over for a legend at Mike Holmes, yet is quickly building one of his own. In just his second season at the helm, the Crusaders won the Division VIII state title a year ago. For the first time in 30 years, they'll play in a conference this season, the Lakes 8, and return 18 starters, 9 on each side of the ball.
We had just a tremendous offseason. We had such hardworking kids, and they met a lot of goals in the weight room. And you know, a group of seniors that I think the seniors know that they have to work hard this offseason, which they did. You know, our goal not necessarily to win a conference title, but to qualify for the playoffs. We know if we're qualified for the playoffs after playing that schedule, you know, our team's going to be pretty battle tested.
And as they always do, the West Catholic Falcons, defending state champs in Division V, have a brutal schedule to contend with, and they open the season at Oak Ridge, a team they beat on the drive to Ford Field last season. Now they're returning about half of their starters, but the emphasis and leadership will be on 3-year starting QB Travis Russell.
It's Travis's football team. I mean, he's really taken leadership role this camp. It's his team. He knows that. He's done a great job with it. So we're looking forward to see what he can do a little bit more. We're running a few more things, a few more formations, and see if we can cut him loose a little bit and have some fun with it.
John Shillito's Zeeland West Ducks open against Detroit Country Day on Thursday. He lost a bunch of key players to graduation, including Danny Botter and Jordan Van Dort, but history shows Shillito coach teams pile up points with a well-run wing T. Casey Brinks is back at quarterback. He runs this offense beautifully. For the Ducks, complacency will be one of their biggest foes this season.
Well, you know, it definitely helps build the program, but it also it's double-edged. I mean, you have to understand that this is a new season and at this different time. And you do spend, I think kids spend a little bit more time, and even as coaches, you relax a little bit, and there's a little too much patting on the back maybe sometimes.
Now, when everyone hits the field for Week 1 tomorrow, it should be with fresher bodies. New practicing rules implemented this year have reduced the amount of contact from week to week. It's a continual progression to keep players safer that's kind of trickled down from the pros. But the new state rules don't necessarily have all the sides sold.
Concussion crisis in the NFL. Some 4,500 former NFL players.
The payout is $765 million over 20 years.
That may not be enough to compensate everyone affected.
Sure, they may not hit as hard as the pros, but concussions are taken just as seriously on the high school level.
We saw a need to develop policies for practice that would reduce the amount of head-to-head contact.
The MHSAA has changed practice rules this season in an effort to protect the athlete, limiting contact to just 2 days a week. a trend they already saw happening.
85 to 90% of our coaches already were. This new policy sends a signal to that 10 to 15% to get on board with the rest of us to make football just as safe as it can possibly be.
MHSA Director Jack Roberts is right. Some schools are on board, like West Catholic, where Dan Roan and his two-time state champion Falcons have used this method since he started.
You know, we want our kids to be fresh on Friday nights, and we want them to be ready. And our goal, and it's still the same goal, is that we're the healthiest, strongest football team we can be in November, not in August.
Everyone agrees player safety is of the utmost importance, but some coaches argue drastic change may hurt more than it'll help.
We're quick to make judgments on rules that the professional athletes are doing. I think we've got to be careful of how much we cut back, and then we expect what we expect on Friday night, and you know, we still have the injuries.
Michigan is just following a national trend. In California, lawmakers passed legislation prohibiting any contact at all during the offseason.
If legislators are involved, hopefully they're getting the right feedback or getting their information for people who are out there in the field. Literally, do you need to have contact to learn how to play the game? I think you do.
Now, the high school ranks all begin tomorrow night, up to 21 games for you. Our Thursday night spotlight games featuring a couple of, number of East Side versus West Side state matchups this week. Zeeland West hosting Detroit Country Day. Rockford squaring off with Utica. We'll also be in Caledonia, where the Scots take on Harper Creek.
And as Laird just mentioned, our big spotlight game tomorrow is Detroit Country Day at Zeeland West. We'll have live coverage from Zeeland Stadium all day long, starting tomorrow morning on daybreak. We're talking live interviews, the Frenzy forecast, plus I'll even be there all morning long with analysis of the upcoming season.
And then on Friday, a scaled-down version of the Football Frenzy. Look at these matchups. Detroit Catholic Central at Muskegon. Best game in the state this week. South Christian, Grand Rapids Christian, West Catholic, Oak Ridge. And we'll have Casey Jones after he finally gets back from that daybreak assignment, heading to East Lansing to cover Michigan State's opener. That'll be coming up on the Frenzy on Friday. And still to come on the Football Frenzy kickoff show, they are sprouting up across West Michigan. Cause games.
And we'll show you some of the other teams to must watch here in West Michigan this fall. All that much, much more when the Frenzy Football Kickoff Show continues.
Welcome back to the Football Frenzy kickoff special. Time to talk about some teams to watch. The list has to start with Muskegon. They made the trek to Ford Field last year and have visions of returning. Big Reds lost some key weapons, including quarterback Deshaun Thrower, but they returned 4 offensive linemen and a slew of talent. They have the other thing they have going for them is that name on the front of the jersey. No program has won more games in the state of Michigan than Muskegon, and if all goes according to plan, they will make some real history in 2014.
And then having a responsibility to uphold a tradition that so many people have sacrificed before them. When it's all about building a legacy. These kids are 13 wins away from having 800 wins, and so they know what they're playing for. They got to make their legacy, make their mark in Muskegon football history, and they'll continue to play like a Big Red.
Now, the Big Reds, big playoff rival and fellow perennial power Lowell, expected to be just that again this year, despite losing 18 starters from last year's club. Red Arrows won 10 straight a year ago, including one over Muskegon, as you see, before falling to the Big Reds in the playoffs. Well, Dean enters his 19th season at the helm. During that time, the Red Arrows have never missed the playoffs, never lost an opener, and have raised a ton of money, by the way, in the community. More on that in a moment.
And they'll have to contend with the Christian Eagles next on the list. Defense, the strength. Offense is what we keep our eyes on. They graduated a Division I caliber offensive line and some explosive offensive weapons, but now it's all about youth. A new running back, a quarterback who hasn't played the position since he was a freshman, and 2 of their non-conference games, South Christian and Muskegon, both Ford Field runner-ups, but it's the conference schedule that has the attention of Don Fellows because there are no weeks off in the OK White.
Actually, every game I feel like we can, have a chance to win, but every game you have a chance to lose. I mean, you have to be ready to play, and if you take a game off, you're in trouble. And then you look at, getting into the playoffs, you want to be healthy. So you're trying to judge how much is too much and pull off when you need to and make sure you're fresh for games. But I feel like we're playing the SEC of high school football.
Then they've got East Grand Rapids and Caledonia also in that conference, both of them in the Detroit News and Free Press Top 25. South Christian Sailors have played for state titles in each of the past 2 seasons, and they should be a player in Division IV again, especially with Johnny Wasink at quarterback. Wasink is verbally committed to play college football at Western Michigan, one of the best quarterbacks in the state, and his coach Mark Taminga says should be even better in 2014.
You know, Johnny was so good for us last year, and he's better this year just by his reading of defenses, and his arm is so strong, and you know, he's the one that makes this team go, and he is such a great leader. He's a great kid, knows the offense, helps everybody out with everything. You know, to build a team around a Johnny Wasink, that's a good place to start.
Chances are either your team or some team on your schedule will be hosting some type of fundraising game this season, and there's a good reason why. More and more schools and communities do so each year.
More than games, they are community events. In many cities, towns, townships, and villages, they are amongst the biggest series of community events each year.
It isn't just a high school football game. This is really the entire district getting together, the entire community getting together.
It's a very valued piece of what we do here with, you know, our football program, but also in our community.
Inspired by the likes and successes of the Pink Arrow Project and the Van Andel Institute Purple Community Games, many have now become games for a cause and a community.
So when you see the community come together, it makes that cause stronger and makes people want to come together even more.
It's about the awareness and bringing people together. It's relationships.
For organizers, like the teams they plan the events for and around, there is plenty of off-season preparation.
Our first meeting was in March, and we set the date then for September.
There's so much going on, and everything behind the scenes equals planning on the back end.
Evaluating.
These are the numbers that we had last time at the bottom.
Organizing.
What's the last order date by which we can get those shirts and get them into the people's hands?
And creating a game plan.
And we need to add a location for the photo booth.
Created often from the simplest of ideas, like seeing a pink jersey at a football game in honor of breast cancer awareness.
And I thought, well, that would be kind of cool to make those for our kids, you know, and maybe sell them. And then the next thing I know, we're thinking, well, we should play in them. And the next thing we knew is, let's honor somebody by wearing their name on the back of them. And then it just took off from there.
6 games and 7 years later, the Pink Arrow Project has now raised more than $1 million, built a Gilda's Club in Lowell, and helped hundreds of local families.
And I'm really proud of the way our community has embraced it, and we've just had a lot of really good people that have gotten involved in it, and it's helped a lot of people too. So those people are coming back and trying to maintain it and improve upon it and doing whatever they can to make it a little better every year.
The event now featuring not only football, but volleyball, soccer, and preseason picnics and community days.
We have had the support of this community from the very beginning. Everyone seems to know someone that has been affected by cancer.
The Van Andel Institute Purple Community Games have raised nearly $1 million over the past 5 years.
100% of all the dollars raised at all of these Purple community events stays local, stays in the community, and stays at Van Andel Institute.
Both bringing communities together to battle a disease that too often tears them apart.
And for other communities all around the nation now doing these kind of things to help the cause is just amazing. That we're really proud that it sprouted here, and we're really proud that Noel Dean started it.
Awesome, isn't it? Gold standards, what makes West Michigan such a great place to live, such a giving community. Now, for years, they called it the Holy War, but now it can only be described as a holy alliance.
If Thursday night when athletes from Kalamazoo Christian and Hackett Catholic Central take the field together for the first time ever, they'll be playing on the same team.
Brett Thomas has the story.
In the field of religion,
you need to step up.
They have been separated for centuries.
You need to raise the level of intensity.
But on the field of football,
you. 1, 2, 3, United.
It is an unlikely alliance.
We're gonna have that kid go there, just step there.
Kalamazoo Christian and Hackett Catholic Central fielding a team together, joining forces.
Go put your cleats on.
Coaches, programs, players.
You have 2 rich heritage schools coming together, 2 private faith-based schools that have been going at it for how many years, coming together. It is big. It is big.
Big because things at both schools were getting small. Enrollment dropping, players out for football dwindling, kids playing offense, defense, and special teams. Sprint! Getting worn down. It wasn't safe.
Some of the best relationships are formed out of necessity. And in this case, both schools were faced with the real possibility that neither would be able to field an 11-man football team. Unless someone had a big idea and was bold enough to bring it up.
I've been getting a lot of positive encouragement
I've gotten a lot
from
of
it all.
positives myself,
Yep.
Jerry and Mike, big and bold, athletic directors, architects of a private school football program, Hail Mary, combine teams, and then turn them loose. It wasn't easy. There was a lot of convincing to be done.
We knew that this could blow up on us, but we were pretty confident that we were doing it for the right reasons.
It's just a great thing for the kids, and bottom line is the kids.
At first, those kids weren't quite sure what to think of it all until that first meeting at a local sub shop.
We've always looked at each other so differently, and now it's like, oh, these guys are human.
We've had a lot of team bonding, and we hang out a lot, Always go out to eat after practices and stuff, so.
We had a team camp out at his house.
It was a lot of fun.
And
there you go.
A lot of work.
That's what I want exactly.
We are gauging right now who wants to play football.
Because with unification comes an unexpected side effect. No one is guaranteed to get in the game.
Some of y'all are going to have to fight for your playing time.
Sit!
Another learning experience in a rich medley of life lesson metaphors with one recurring theme. Sometimes your worst enemy can be your saving grace.
1, 2, 3,
In Kalamazoo, Brett Thomas, 24-Hour News 8.
Thank you, Brett. There's a lot more to come on the Football Frenzy kickoff show. Up next, we'll be joined in studio by two of the top recruiting experts in the Midwest, Josh Helmholt and Alan True, here to talk about the top players in West Michigan. Welcome back to the Football Frenzy kickoff special. We spent the last segment talking about teams. Now we're going to focus on players, and nobody knows our local talent better than our two guests, Alan True from Scout and Fox Sports, and Josh Helmholt here from Rivals and Yahoo. And they submitted their list of top 10 players from the Wood TV 8 viewing area, and 5 of those players showed up on both your lists. And Josh, let's start out with East Kentwood offensive lineman John Kenoy. What makes him so good?
Of all the guys we're going to talk about today, if I had one guy that I wanted to start my team off with today, I think it's going to be John Kenoy. I think he can play at the highest levels of college football. A Western Michigan committed to them early. Great grab for P.J. Fleck and his staff. He's a guy who the only knock on him is that he's 6'3", doesn't have the greatest size, but at the same time, he checks off every other box. Plays with outstanding strength, has great feet, and he's a little bit nasty, which is what you want in that offensive line position.
What'd you like about him, Al?
Well, his dad played college football, and I think you can see that he's grown up around the game. He's technically very sound. He plays, as Josh said, he plays tackle for his high school, but he's probably going to move inside at the next level because he's not 6'5", 6'6", but he has everything else that you'd want. And obviously he's a great football player when the lights are on Fridays, but he really hit the camp circuit hard this summer, and he went against some of the top guys, not just in the Midwest, but in the country, and he more than held his own. So I agree with Josh. He's a really, really good get for Western Michigan.
All right, one of his teammates in college will be John Wasink out of South Christian. Are you guys a little surprised that it's Western and not maybe a Big Ten or something? Or what is it that keeps him from being, one of the top tier quarterbacks in the country?
Yeah, I think, you look at 150 players in the country, quarterback position are able to grab Division I scholarship offers. That's a small number. When you're talking about every team's taking, 5, 6, 7 offensive linemen, they're taking one quarterback. And so Wasink is in that rare group where he's a guy that, is able to compete against a very smaller number of players for offers, and his moxie, his game leadership, and obviously he's got the arm to be able to play at that Division I level.
What are the intangibles you think he brings to the table, Alan?
Well, they put a lot of trust in him. He gets to make a lot of calls at the line of scrimmage. He changes a lot of the plays. He calls a lot of the protections, and to be able to do that as a junior like he did last year says something about his intelligence, not just his intelligence, but his work ethic to really study and go into each game very prepared. And sometimes I think the quarterback position gets overanalyzed in the summer when they're in shorts and t-shirts, and that's why maybe he's not 6'6" and he's not throwing fireballs like some of those national guys, but you see him in a game and that ball is always in the right spot and he gets them in the right place, and I think all of those intangibles are going to make him very successful in college.
All right, next guy you guys had on your list, Mona Shores, quarterback, and University of Buffalo commit Tyree Jackson. Alan, what do you like about Tyree?
Well, I like his upside potential a lot. He's grown. I saw him a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden you turn around and he's 6'4", 200 pounds, and has giant hands. He can move around the field well. But I thought he really showed a lot of toughness last year. I was at the game when they played Muskegon, and Muskegon's going to bring it. They're going to rough you up a little bit, and he kept getting up. He kept making great throws, and then over the summer you really saw the improvement. So he's a guy, when you talk about projecting to the next level, his trajectory is going upwards, and that's what I really liked about him.
He had some great weapons last year. Are we going to see a different kind of quarterback from him this year?
Well, there's no doubt he's a guy that can take over a huddle. His head coach, Matt Kozak, has really helped him come along. When we saw him early on, he was a guy, that the tools were there, but the refinement and, the rough edges had to be smoothed out. That's where we've seen his progression over the last year plus, is that now his mechanics are tighter, his release is shorter, and he's throwing a much better ball than he was when he started out.
All right, you guys also agreed on Kennewick Hills offensive lineman Derek Smith, a Central Michigan commit.
Yeah, Derek, when you look at Derek, again, I think the knock on him is that he's 250 pounds. He's a guy that, probably doesn't have the ideal size at the offensive tackle position right now. He also played some defensive end. I'll be interested to see where Central Michigan plays him. He can play both, but Eric Fisher was also an undersized offensive tackle who went to Central Michigan and became the #1 pick in the NFL draft. He has an outstanding athleticism repertoire there that he can move around and be able to do the things that you want at that tackle position. But we'll see where his physical development takes him. He's a guy that's a high upside guy for me.
All right, Alan, let's move on to St. Joe's offensive lineman. Wesley French plays both ways, offense, defense. He's nasty, isn't he?
Yeah, and it's surprisingly athletic for a kid who's 290 pounds. You see him in person, and he looks like almost ready for college already. I actually think he could go either way at the next level. A lot of his film last year was on the offensive side of the ball, was outstanding on the defensive side of the ball at a couple of camps. But I really think the athleticism, the ability to bend and move at 290 pounds, you don't see that a lot, and that's what I really like about Wes.
All right, so you guys had 5 other guys on your list. Let's check out those guys right now. Josh, this should be your list. Other players to watch around West Michigan if you get the opportunity.
A couple of underclassmen on here, and this, actually, Corey Malone Hatcher out of St. Joseph, the only player in the region that has a Big Ten offer, and he's only going to be a sophomore. Ohio State had them at his Friday Night Lights camp, really showed out well there. The sleeper on here for me is Simeon Smith. He's 6'5", 194 pounds. If he can prove that he can play a 230 plus, I think he's going to be a tight end prospect, an outstanding tight end prospect.
All right, Alan, let's take a look at your list. The other 5 players to watch: Mason Apple, Nick Morosi, Bryce Wilker. Go ahead, tell us a little bit about some of these guys.
Well, Steven Eiper from Greenville is committed to Central Michigan, and as we talked a little bit about with Derek Smith, they seem to just be able to find these guys that are a little bit under the radar, tough, fit their system. I think Steven's going to be a really good one for them. Carter Masick is going to be a 3-year starter for East Grand Rapids, comes from obviously a great program, well coached there. And then the top 3 on that list, Mason Apple, Nick Morosi, and Bryce Wilker, none of them currently have Division I offers, but I think a lot of players from West Michigan have slipped through the cracks in the past, gone to the D2 level, and become really good players. And I know some of the GLIAC schools are probably crossing their fingers a little bit about some of those guys.
I know, it's just great to love the work that you guys do. Josh, Alan, thank you for joining us. For your insight, safe travels this year on the recruiting road as you go follow that. All right, Case, what's next?
Good stuff, guys. We got to take a break, but when we come back, it's time to shift gears. We're talking college football, sitting down with Mark D'Antonio one-on-one, the head coach at Michigan State, and Michigan's Brady Hoke. That's next.
Well, despite the fact Michigan State is the defending Big Ten champ, Ohio State was picked to win the conference this year. But that poll was taken before the Buckeyes lost quarterback Braxton Miller for the season. Don't fret though, Spartan fans. This is just the type of thing Mark D'Antonio loves.
As I've watched this program over the years, it's always played with a chip on its shoulder. Do you continue to have that? How do you find it when you've had that success now?
Well, it's important we have it. That's what I mean by being entitled. You know, I think that's the makeup of this game of football. You got to play a little bit angry. I mean, you just have to. You got to prepare a little bit angry, like you have something to prove. As soon as you don't, I think things collapse on you a little bit. So again, it goes back to handling success. You know, it starts right now, and this is a part of it.
What have you seen in this offseason that makes you think this team can have the same kind of success, or maybe even more than last year?
What I've noticed is that our senior group, although it's not as big, we have a large junior group, and that they've sort of taken what our past seniors have done and have, tried to identify with that and copy that. So I think they're pretty consistent with in their mindset. We have a lot of coaches that have been in our program that have no, they've stayed grounded, and I think our coaches helped in that endeavor as well. So you're only as good as your last practice. You're going to be corrected. You're going to, want our program to be recognized as a program that is a hard-working, disciplined. The approach stays a little bit old school while we still move towards doing things on the edge and cutting edge. We want to be an old school football team, and that starts with our belief system.
You guys were able to do something last year that you couldn't do the year before, and that's like when the slide may have started in a game or in a streak. It kind of snowballed an avalanche. But last year, you overcame every challenge, it seemed. What's the difference? How thin is that line between failure and success?
Yeah, we talked about last year about finding the inches. And we really didn't get overwhelmed the year before. We lost by inches, whether it was a last drive or a last play or something. Last year we found those inches. Somehow, some way we came up with the inches. The key is, and keep in mind, we won every game by double digits. But if you were at those games, you know how close they were. They could have went the other way. So I think we have to realize that that's not a given. Have no sense of entitlement. Roll up our sleeves and make those things happen again, and chase the inches again. But that's when I said, hey, it starts here. That phrase, it starts here, it really truly does.
I know you guys don't like to look past that first game, first practice, any of that, but have you started talking about the playoff and that new opportunity that comes along with that for teams that would have been 3 or 4 last year?
I think we guard against that. I've sort of told our team, hey, don't worry about that stuff. Our MO has always been take care of business first, deal with the things that are on your plate. And our goal is always going to be win the Big Ten championship. To do that, you better get to the championship game. If we can do those two things, that third thing will happen. And then we'll play for the fourth thing.
All right, we've got to take another break. When we return, our sit-down interview with a man who is definitely on the hot seat, Michigan coach Brady Hoke. Well, no question, Brady Hoke is on the hot seat in Ann Arbor. Another year like last year, and this might be his last. That's one of the topics we discussed in his office at Schembechler Hall.
Well, there's nothing like being in the big house now. There's no stadium like it in this country. There's no feeling going down that tunnel, hitting that banner. Game day's fun, and it should be fun for the players. And if you've prepared Sunday through Friday, then that Saturday, that game day, you ought to be ready to play and have fun playing a great game.
How much do you see and hear all this stuff around you now, especially with social media growing?
Mm-hmm.
So, how much do you have to police it within your own program?
Well, you educate them every day, Jack. I mean, if you're not doing that, we're fortunate. I mean, we've had some hiccups. We've had some guys make poor choices. But you constantly educate them on the choices and the things that they're putting out there. And think about when you hit send, would your grandmother really appreciate what you're doing? And or whoever that loved one is who you have that respect for. But there's no question. And where are they getting, you know, that education if not from us? You know, are they not getting it at home? Some aren't. We all know that. You know, are the high schools doing a good job? And I'm not talking about high school coaches. I'm just talking about teachers in general. You know, educating kids.
How much more difficult does it make it, though, on the psyche of a kid? Because, you know, when they're going through the recruiting process, boy, everybody loves them.
Yeah.
And then when they get to college and have a bad game, they're getting crushed on Twitter. And
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Well, you know, I'll be honest with you. You know, we tell them not to read any of it and not to get involved in any of it. And you know, we're all human, and human nature is when people are saying good things, yeah, I want to look at it. Well, you know what? The same people saying those good things, when you don't do so well, they're going to be on you. So I wouldn't read any of it if I were any of them. So, but that, you know, and that's just my opinion on it.
And it's got to pertain to coaches as well. I mean, one of the things we hear now, if you look at the lists of coaches on hot seats,
right?
Some have your name on it.
Sure.
How hot does that seat feel right now, or is it just another day at the office?
It's another day. I mean, look, I got into coaching to help kids. You know, the game, I love the game, is competition and winning, always part of it, yeah. And is that something that you want to do? Yeah, but if we can win in life for these kids that come through this program, and we can help kids understand what it is to be a man and be a husband and to be somebody who's going to do a great job with whatever endeavor they go into, then we're doing our job. We know the expectations of Michigan and the student athletes in this football program. We understand that. But if we keep doing the things, graduating 69-69, and the character and the integrity of the guys that we have in this program, then we're going to win.
Michigan, of course, opens Saturday at home.
And after the break, we'll take a look at Brian Kelly and the coaching tree, how life as a Laker has prepared them all for the big stage.
We'll also go one-on-one with Western Michigan's P.J. Fleck, and we'll hear from Central's Dan Enos heading into a pivotal year number 5.
They set the blueprint for how to win a Division II. And we're still following that blueprint at Grand Valley. Times change, methods change, but our principles are still in place that we use, and allows us established by some great coaches.
It's a lot like one of those ancestry websites where you can follow the line back to where the family started, look and see what everyone's doing today. So was the case with Brian Kelly in Grand Valley, something that started with humble beginnings but blossomed into quite the coaching tree.
Did you not watch the play?
Like any good tree, Brian Kelly planted his seeds early on.
We built a system. Everybody believed in it, had great confidence in him and what we were doing, and it certainly provided some opportunities.
For Jeff Quinn, that opportunity to branch out came as the head coach at Buffalo.
For 7 days, I was going to Notre Dame, you know, because Buffalo wasn't even in the picture. And then 7 days later, I got offered the head coaching job, and certainly that opportunity, you don't pass those up, ever.
Another branch in the long lineage of Kelly is Chuck Martin, who after 4 years under him at Notre Dame is now the head coach at Miami, Ohio.
I love being an assistant coach, but I love being a head coach more. You know, it's one of those. And I'm like, well, what was better about being assistant? Nothing's.
It's been nearly a 2.5-decade journey that's changed colors, allegiances, won conference and national titles, but can all be traced back to Grand Valley.
When I got to Grand Valley, I thought DB coach at Grand Valley is like incredible dream job, you know, and then I became a coordinator, then I became a head coach.
At one time, my aspiration was just to be a head wrestling coach at a Division III school and be an assistant football coach, and here, next thing you know, I'm the head football coach, one of 128 in the country, and I'm very proud of that, and Brian, you know, certainly had a lot to do with that.
The Kelly descendants continue to shape and change the college landscape. They're all over. Quinn, Martin, Hoke, Dan Enos, Van Gorder, Willie Martinez, John Jancic.
Goes on and on and on of the very, very successful people. It is kind of like a Miami cradle of coaches that doesn't get as much pub. Maybe they got to start to put some marble statues out there and make a big deal. But it's a pretty incredible coaching tree.
Matt Mitchell and the Lakers open up next Thursday.
Well, in the MAC, it'll be a pivotal season for both Western and Central Michigan University. After a terrible start a year ago, the Chippewas battled back to win 5 of their last 7. They finished 5-3 in the MAC, 6-6 overall. Yet despite being bowl eligible, the Chips were one of just 9 such programs in the nation not to get an invitation to the postseason. Dan Enos enters year number 5 in Mount Pleasant with just a 19-30 record, but with all 11 starters returning on offense and 8 of 11 back on defense.
It's always good to have experience. We were really decimated by injuries last year, especially early in the season, but through that process we gained a lot of experience, and we have 91 career starts back in our offensive line. I feel our defense will be as good as it's been since I've been there. We've got good young men in our program that work hard, and we want to be in the conversation at the end of the year of being able to put ourselves in a position to win the MAC West, and I think we have a football team that's very capable of doing that.
Out in Kalamazoo, they're looking for some wins. After an 11-1 year in his first season ever as head coach, Western Michigan's PJ Fleck talked with us one-on-one about his high but youthful expectations and promised, yes, more energy.
We got to work cut out for us, but the one thing, we're going to have about 14 true freshmen starting, and a lot of the depth charts that are out, they don't really have our true freshmen built into there. But the exciting thing is you don't really know what you're going to get with true freshmen. Then the scary part is you don't really know what you're going to get with true freshmen, but youth doesn't really know where they can go. And we have to do, including me being a leader, is being able to have to motivate them so they know the sky's the limit for the program and the sky's the limit for them, because they don't have a ceiling on them right now.
Self-evaluation of yourself heading into your second year.
Well, I'm always growing. I'm always continuing to learn. I visit a lot of head coaches in the off-season. What I did, I tried to make sure that I got to people who have been through the turnaround process. And the message was still the same from all of them. Just stay the course. It'll happen. You're doing it the right way. And it's good for me to go out there and see that from different people. You never doubt yourself. The plan is the plan, and we're riding it. We're riding it no matter what. It's nice to hear those things from your peers and from people that you really trust and believe in. But I learned a lot about my leadership skills too. And last year was all about trying to convince people that were already there to believe in our culture.
Not that it's ever easy, but is it easier heading into your second year? You got a better feel for what you're doing, where the program's headed?
Well, I'm a firm believer. I learned this from Greg Schiano. Year 2 of a complete culture turnaround is really a head coach's year 1, and that's what's really interesting. And I completely agree. When you look at it, I'm so much more energized, even if that's hard to believe. I'm happier. I'm looking forward to this season more than I even was last year, because I really believe these players have really got it, and I think we're going to surprise a lot of people in 2014.
We're going to see a more energized PJ Fleck?
You will see a more energized PJ Fleck. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? But no, I'm truly blessed to be the head coach at Western Michigan, and every day I'm thankful for it. I got a great staff. I've got an unbelievable roster full of kids that are really hungry and truly believe in each other and believe in an ultimate goal of whatever the outcome is, but they believe in something that's bigger than themselves, and that's what it's all about.
On the pros, there's a new coaching staff and a few new faces in the Lions locker room. Up next, what the Lions players, new and returning, believe Jim Caldwell brings to the team. Well, the Lions will wrap up the NFL preseason tomorrow night in Buffalo before kicking off the regular season a week from Monday in front of a national television audience. It'll mark the first time, by the way, the Lions have opened at home on a Monday night since 1971 when they played at Tiger Stadium. There were a handful of new faces in the lineup this year, led by free agents Golden Tate and James Ahedebo, top draft pick Eric Ebron, and new coordinators Joe Lombardi and Terrell Austin. But the biggest change is the man at the top, Jim Caldwell, brought in to give the Lions a little more discipline and leadership and a little less attitude. The players say he brings that and much more.
Judge, what is it that Jim's brought here that everybody's so excited about?
Just his demeanor. He's a guy that you want to work for, you want to play for, you want to be successful under. He treats everybody like men, and I think he has the respect of everybody, and I think that's a big thing for us.
Great guy, great man, great leader. He knows how to win. He's going to treat us like grown men first and foremost. I had that in Seattle, but I've heard in the past that wasn't always the case around here.
And while he treats his players like men, they say he does so much like a father or a grandfather would. At the same time, preaching discipline and, most importantly, accountability.
Coach is great. I mean, love every bit of him. He's a guy that understands how to coach his players, give them respect as respect is reciprocated to him, and it just treats us like men.
He's a great coach. We all knew that, but I think he's even a better person. You know, he's a leader first, father figure first, you know, and he's implemented that from the very beginning. I think he just has prestige, and he's won a championship.
Two, in fact, one as a quarterback's coach, the other as an offensive coordinator, with a third Super Bowl appearance as a head coach, all in the last 7 seasons.
Our head coach has been to Super Bowls, has won Super Bowls. Having those guys around the building, I think means a lot to us, and we can all learn from it, and that's something that we haven't had in the past.
His whole mental approach to practice, to games, is all about the championship level of thinking, of acting, walking, talking.
They also respect the players he's worked with and helped develop, including Super Bowl champion quarterbacks Joe Flacco and Hall of Famer to be Peyton Manning.
I mean, listen, this guy's been around one of the best football players on the planet, so he really doesn't have time for, BS or anything like that. I mean, he treats you like a pro, and that's what he expects, professionalism.
He's seen how the greats work, and he's seen how great teams work, and so if he see us not, performing up to those standards, he knows, okay, hey, man, to win a championship or to be as good as you can be, we got to perform better because I've seen it done better. And so guys respond to that, and guys don't take that lightly.
All right, thank you, Larry. We're joined in studio by Sports Overtime football analyst Ty Halleck. Ty here to talk Lions. And Ty, what have you seen from Jim Caldwell so far that leads you to believe maybe some things have changed here?
Well, we've talked about it, quite frankly, most of the preseason. I'm not sure that I've seen a lot up to this point. I think Jim Caldwell continues to figure out ways to put his handprint and his thumbprint on his football team, and he's got to get guys like Matthew Stafford to buy in. He's calm, he's cool, he's collected, and he's a quiet disciplinarian from what everyone says he does in terms of coaching. But up to this point, we've seen a lot of penalties, very methodical play, not the type of inspired football that rather you're quiet or loud, i.e. Jim Schwartz being, a little bit more boisterous and kind of getting after it type guy, and maybe a little bit looser in terms of the disciplinarian side. But somehow, some way, this Lions team's got to bring it together for the New York Football Giants on Monday Night Football in front of a nation that, quite frankly, just like you and I, are hungry for football.
Well, you've got a big stage right off the bat against the team that, from what I've seen of the Giants so far, they're a little beatable. Jason Pierre-Paul, who knows what's going to be his deal here. But, how important is it for this team to get off to a fast start under this new regime, especially with you're looking at salary cap-wise and maybe losing Sue next year on the horizon?
Right. I think for Jim Caldwell and his staff, and quite frankly for this front office, they need to make some noise and they need to make it early because they also have a very tough schedule. Their schedule during the course of the year with some of the teams they're playing, the New Orleans Saints, let alone in conference play, it's not going to be an easy time against the Green Bay Packers twice, the Chicago Bears twice, and even Minnesota Vikings. At the end of the day, these guys have other games that they're going to have to show up and do their best. And for this organization, I really think they have to get something going now because you are faced with salary cap issues. And let's face it, Jim Caldwell can be as quiet as he wants, but somehow, some way, he's got to dig deep into that Detroit mentality, that blue collar, that Honolulu blue and silver of old, and resurrect an attitude and a demeanor with a football team that's got to get out, got to get physical, but they got to be smart, fast, and take certainly advantage of that offense that they should have with a solid running back, good receivers, and a good solid offensive line at this point. Because some concerns, I think, on defense, but somehow, some way, they got to figure out ways to win and win early.
All right, quick yes or no question. Is this a playoff team?
I think they're right on that verge. I look at this as a 9-7, 10-6 type team. I think they should be able to get over the hump because of their offense, but they're going to struggle because I still don't think in the secondary especially, they have to get off the field on third downs. They haven't been able to do that.
So yes, no. Ty says maybe. We'll see how this all shakes out.
And again, the Lions wrap up the preseason tomorrow. The high schoolers kick it off, up to 21 games for you. Here's a look at some of our spotlight games. Again, Country Day, Zeeland West, Utica and Rockford, those east-west battles, and Harper Creek at Caledonia.
And once again, our big spotlight game tomorrow is Detroit Country Day at Zeeland West. We'll have live coverage from Zeeland Stadium all day long, starting tomorrow morning with analysis from there as well.
Fired up for some football. You guys lift up those shoes, Case. They got a little scuffed for the show, so here's your highlighter. You can wax them in. Hey, thanks for joining us. We're looking forward to another season of football, friends. To see you tomorrow night for night 1 of the season.